there's no good referral mechanism in most cases here locally. I think it's public knowledge, but like NovaCare is literally in the office of an orthopedic group and routing all of their referrals. Well, guess what? Where do you think those referrals are going? So my thing with this is, good morning, guys. Tony Maritato here. Dave Kittle joining me shortly. Jimmy McKay watching remotely. So before Dave gets on, I'll share a little kind of personal information. So as you know, the end of 2024, I had made a commitment to myself, to my company, to really push and try and grow the social media presence a little bit more. If we have a chance today, we'll talk about that in detail. We'll talk about how I'm looking at what NCAA and college sports have done with NIL, name, image, likeness, and how we can bring some of those lessons into the world of therapy to attract the best therapists. But I'm also looking at how, this is going to affect the future of what I'm doing, the way I see this going. And this applies to all of us. I shared a post on LinkedIn this morning. I said, look, none of us have a clinical knowledge deficit. It's like when young high school athletes come into my clinic, I always say, you don't have a loading deficit. You have a recovery deficit. The same holds true for therapists. Therapists know more than they need to know to achieve a positive outcome for their patient. What they don't know is how to share that message. How to let people, prospects, know, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. This is how it helps or benefits you. And so I said in that LinkedIn post, if you're not going to be the one to drive the marketing and the messaging and the sales, no problem. But then you have to charge more to be able to afford to hire the person who's going to do it. I don't know if you and I ever talked about this. I'm a big believer, even though I don't follow my own advice. Dave, what do you think of this concept? I don't think therapists should be the ones selling their services in the clinic or in a mobile setting. I think we should have appointment setters. I think we should have closers. I think we should have people that do the sales for us. They should be commission-based. But I think the therapist is the worst person to sell the service or the product or the experience that we want to deliver. What are your thoughts?
I think for the most part, I agree with you. I'm still doing a lot of the phone calls, and I'm in the mix. I'm in the mix in the beginning, and I'm setting up. I already, like, if we have someone reach out based on their location, I know which therapist that's going to be. I'll start dropping that therapist name to the client, whether it's over the phone, over email, text message, whatever, if we're corresponding about paperwork or confirming like their address and whatever it is, all that type of stuff. So, but I think, I don't know, maybe you would agree. Like, I think I'm a little bit different from my entrepreneurial background where I have a lot of, thick skin and scar tissue built up and I've had a lot of reps on the phone. And maybe we can tie in that post you posted on LinkedIn last week where I talked about therapists fearing rejection. So I would agree. Most therapists are not built for it. They didn't have a previous business where there was rejection, and they were used to pitching a dollar amount directly to the decision maker. So I agree. I think for the most part, it would be great for therapists and practices to have some, appointment setter, someone who's not a physical therapist.
The challenge, though, is how do you afford that person? Because anybody who's going to be good at that, they're going to be comparing opportunities. They're going to say, look, I could go work for Dave Kittle and sell his appointments at a commission, or I can go into pharmaceutical sales, or I could go into, tech. And I mean, we're talking about really a good salesperson. I've got a indirect connection to somebody who's doing door-to-door sales right now. Like, just imagine that. Like, I get them here at my house, but door-to-door sales, I think it's pest control. It might be solar. I don't even remember. This individual sold over $1 million in like 3 months. The commission was ridiculous. And so when you're looking at somebody who has the potential to communicate with another human being and sell something and earn $300,000, $500,000 a year in a couple months, how are they ever going to work for me? How am I ever going to afford them? I think that's a big challenge. Any thoughts or any feedback for the small provider out there right now who says, Tony, I know I can't sell. I know I'm terrible at it. I give everything away for free, but how do I afford to put somebody in between me and the consumer?
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of rework your offers and what your different services and the prices of those services and how big of a reach you have. Like, I've been watching, that maybe ties this in. Like, I've been watching a lot of Alex Hormozi offer videos recently and kind of reviewing, like, I had the audiobook, $100 million offers and $100 million leads. And, reworking those offers, but you have to have something that will then keep someone or pay X amount over time, knowing that customer's lifetime value. So if they're going to start paying $100 a month or whatever it is, a couple thousand, you have to understand, like, how much is that one patient or client or you consumer or customer or whatever, how much are they worth to you, and like how much will they spend? And the challenge is if you're coming from an in-network insurance world, it is really challenging to even wrap your head around. I've given examples, hopefully not too much of like a humble brag, but I've given a lot of examples here on this show where we talk about patients and families who, spend $30,000-$40,000 a year with us. I know, I can't even, like, I've stumbled into it. I can't even believe that people have that money and that do that. Now, unfortunately, that's not everywhere, right? That's not every state or metro or rural area or whatever. So the thing you're talking about with maybe it's an appointment setter with that type of a commission, whatever, maybe it's only possible in metros or where there's potential patients and families that have the financial resources to do that. And then you can maybe reverse engineer, like, okay, what type of offer do we need to see X amount of people and we charge X amount of dollars? And could we could maybe on another episode, we could probably break down on a spreadsheet and say, could there be a physical therapy practice that's similar to that solar example or any other example? Is it even possible to have a salesperson pitching your services? I think you'd probably have to have some, concierge membership. You'd have to have, you'd have to be in a certain area that has residents that have that ability to pay out of pocket. They have to have the financial resources and they have to want to pay. And Alex Hormozi calls this purchasing power. So you have to have folks that are able and willing. And those are two different things. They have to have the money themselves or their families, and then also be willing to part with those dollars. So your offer has to be dialed in. Your fulfillment, the service, has to be dialed in, and that's a very stark difference from an in-network clinic where there's there's no pressure, there's no sales pressure. It's open access, like you accept almost anyone that has that insurance, but then you got to play the in-network insurance game with, capped reimbursements, declining reimbursements, all that. So it's a big challenge if you've been indoctrinated in the in-network insurance world for years or decades.
Yeah, this is going to be a thread we're going to weave, I guarantee, through this whole episode. Let's take a look. This is a video clip you commented on. Oh, you know what? I didn't go get the hello, fellow physical therapist clip. I forgot about that one. Anyway, this is a clip. This guy, this talking about loss leaders. This is a new feature I just figured out how to use on StreamYard, so bear with me.
Lose money on this to make a profit on this. Costco loses money on this to make a profit on this. McDonald's lose money on this to make a profit on this. Cinemas lose money on this to make a profit on this.
All right, so we get the idea. There's tons of examples of businesses and companies that I'm calling them loss leaders. Maybe I'm using that incorrectly, but the idea is you lose money on the front end to make money potentially on the back end. So Costco, I love the Costco business model. They sell products nearly at cost, very little profit margin, because they make the bulk of their profit on the membership. I absolutely think therapists can model that. But this is where I look at, I think we could learn every lesson we need out of patient care and put it into business. So just like if I have a patient that wants to walk again, they had an injury. We have somebody right now had a fall at home, pelvic fracture. They were fully independent prior. Now they're struggling to just take a step. Loading that fracture side is painful. That person has to do a ton of stuff they don't want to do. to be able to do the thing they want to do. It's a very simple concept that travels through all of therapy services. It's the same for us. If I want to treat a specific patient without the financial restrictions of them having to pay for it, being able to afford it, being able to do that, I have to put in the work to build the other parts of my business that generate the money and the profitability, so that if I don't want to sell, I need to be able to afford to pay a good salesperson. I need a profit center that's going to drive that profitability so I can afford it. If it's not patient care, which probably not, it's going to have to come from somewhere else, you know? So what are the other things that we can sell? And this is where we've talked 100 times. It could be real estate. We own the building we're in. We have depreciation. We have all of these financial assets that, you know, benefit us and allow us to do things that maybe another provider doesn't have the ability to do. Looking at your business model, looking at mobile clinicians, you know, what are some things, just the lowest hanging fruit that you see that they should be monetizing, that should just be like ridiculous profit centers for them, just ATMs pumping out cash so that they can do the things that they want to do with the patient without stressing out about being able to afford to do that?
Weekend visits. We have 80% gross margins on our weekend visits, meaning we charge 500 or 510, or kind of in the 500 to 550 range, kind of like this new year pitching 550. But I know it sounds crazy, but $500 a visit for a Saturday or Sunday visit, paying therapists, you know, $100 a visit. So that's 80% gross margins.
I want to talk about a video I shared regarding a telehealth opportunity, but I want to hit on Scott. Okay. Scott said using athletic trainers in school systems as a loss leaders to generate leads, referrals for an outpatient orthopedic clinic. I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to tell you why. And this is related to another LinkedIn post where somebody had mentioned putting physical therapy in a CrossFit gym. Scott, that should be the dream situation. And I know we have hospitals here who do it. When I was in Florida, they had hospitals there who do it. Hospital would hire an athletic trainer, put them in, you know, school systems. We have hospitals here that pay orthopedic surgeons to sit on the sidelines during high school football games. It seems like a no-brainer. It absolutely should be what happens. But what I find is the athletic trainers that I see in high school systems, they don't want to send patients to physical therapists. And the way the hospital model is, those athletic trainers aren't getting reimbursement for the services being delivered to the student athletes who are injured, who need rehab. I'm not even going to say need physical therapy. I'm going to say need rehab. So what ends up happening, and this has been 20 years of experience for me, I've never seen a hospital system do this well. Every single time the athletic trainer wants to rehab the athlete on site, they're not generating referrals. They're not generating goodwill. They're not generating anything of benefit. And it's always been just a loss, never a loss leader. It's never led to increased revenue for the hospital. Do you have any experience with that? Have you seen this work well for hospital systems or anyone who does it?
I've seen it work well for a private practice, which means I agree with Scott and I disagree with you, Tony. So Beautiful. There's a practice nearby. It used to be called One-on-One PT. It had like 14 or 15 something locations. And then there was JAG Physical Therapy in New Jersey, and they had like 15 or 20. They merged together. They became JAG 1 PT. And now they dropped the one, and now they're back to JAG PT. So it was kind of like a merger, but JAG really bought One-on-One. And anyway, so historically, that location that happens to be 3 blocks away from us. And I know this intimately because my wife, Annie, used to work at this clinic. And I also knew, I think 1 or 2 of the ATCs actually came to our wedding back in 2015. So yes, Scott says, thanks, Dave. You're welcome. Scott, I got your back, man. Listen, and here we go. Let's get into it. So this practice had 1 or 2 or 3 staff ATCs. What's interesting is they would work the sidelines of the practice of the football game. It was mostly football, but they were at the games. They were at some practices. And when there were not games and practices, guess where they were, Tony?
No idea.
They were working in that physical therapy office, that clinic. They were the aides. They were it was basically like an ATC aid. They were kind of taking patients through. That's a whole other sidebar of like taking them through exercise and all that, and probably billing the therapist, one-on-one when it was not one-on-one. Anyway, who cares? This practice is a different name now and whatever. So they would have these ATCs for that exactly, the loss leader. And did it work? I mean, I don't have the dollar amount, handy, but like Annie used to say, they would all come in. The football players would all come in after practice, and it would be like a ton of them. And it was, in general, like a lot of them would do subsequent follow-up visits, and they would get hands-on treatment and all that in recovery. So Scott said he was a trainer. So Scott was a trainer before becoming a PT, and it would work very well for them as well. So with this practice, the evenings, like after practice, they would have a lot of football players come in, and they would kind of like that whole buddy system. It seemed like it was probably like, the social, like cheers, like the social setting like you have in your practice, Tony. Like everyone knows each other, and everyone's joking around and all that. So in terms of lead generation and getting new patients, it absolutely worked, at least for that practice.
So I can see to Scott and Dave, and I can absolutely see how a private practice, even a larger private practice, could do it properly, whereas a hospital, they just don't care. There's no real financial incentive for it. They don't care. They've got it in the budget. They're just going to do it. That being said, let's build on this football, injuries, monetization. So I'm going to share another video. This is a short clip of the beginning of a telehealth call. Now, this is with family. This is not, quote, a real patient, but this will introduce the idea. Give me one second.
This is your family?
AC joint what, though?
Well, but they originally, like, the first lady was like, I'm going to need somebody to come and help me get this back in place.
Okay. Let me get rid of that. So that's my family, my nephew and his mom. I have permission to share. It was late at night. I mean, if you look at me closely, I probably just got back out of bed because I would have been in bed already. But this has been another one.
And you're like, I'm recording this, otherwise I'm not getting out of bed.
Yeah. But this is another example of like, hidden value that we're not accessing, that I think there's a population within the profession that would love to do something like this. So they were at a football game. They go to the ER. It was an AC joint separation / sprain. I mean, they were in the emergency room. They had imaging. They did all that stuff. They get discharged. They get back home. They're like, we don't know what to do. What do we do now? And so thankfully, they have an amazing physical therapist in the family. Actually, my wife is better than me. They should have talked to her. And so we jump on a video call, and they show me what's going on, and they point to the section. They're like, this is what I think they said, but I don't really understand. And I have these conversations constantly. There's value in this. And so if you're talking to somebody who doesn't have a PT in the family, and everybody who's a PT has this happen to them, is it worth $100, $200 just for the peace of mind to get home at 11 p.m. after practice, after a game, after a theater event, or, whatever your kids are into, to be able to get somebody you trust on the phone who's licensed, who's a professional, who's done this 100 times, 1,000 times, and be like, hey, what do I do? I was just talking to somebody yesterday, a different case, similar diagnoses, just had surgery. They were like, my kid's arm is killing him. He's not allowed to move the shoulder. He just had surgery 48 hours ago, but his wrist and hand are swelling up. What do I do? And so, $100, $200, I mean, cash pay, no insurance. You just do it through a platform. The trouble is, one, who's the therapist who wants to do it? Because I know there's plenty of therapists who don't want to do it. Two, how do we connect the consumer and the available therapist? Because maybe I want to do it, but maybe I'm not available every night, So do we build a marketplace for this? Is there enough interest and demand for it? And then how do we communicate this, show this to potential parents who, or adults or whatever, like you're in a baseball league. I'm sure there's people who get hurt. They're like, do I really have to go to urgent care? I twisted my ankle, but I don't know if I need to get an x-ray. Like, can't I just ask somebody right now? Amazon is moving that way with their health service. There's a lot of interest in that space. I know you don't like telehealth for patient care, but what about just triage? What about just peace of mind?
I like it for triage. I think the easiest way to potentially get awareness around this, to even test it, I think would be like you could post that video on your Total Therapy Solutions, all your, everywhere, like Facebook and Instagram and everywhere. And in the caption, it can say like, you got to name it, right? So it's got to be whatever, like, something, not physical therapy hotline, ouch, painful question hotline. I don't know what it was, something like that. Like ouch. Yeah. I'm thinking of Ouch Med, the urgent care that's in New York City. But something like that. It's got to be, something hotline or some hotline membership, something. And maybe the first time you call in, it's like, well, Tony, you heard about this on social media. Maybe it was a Facebook ad, whatever. And it'll be a $500 call, like for that family member. Let's say they didn't have Tony Maritato as their therapist. That family member went online to the Ohio painful hotline, whatever, and they say, well, it's going to be $500 for this triage call, or you could sign up for $100 a month, cancel anytime, and it's month to month. Now, does that help? Like, you get the $500 per call as the price anchor. It maybe segues people into continuity. Are people going to continue to pay for that month over month, or is really like an a la carte, like one-off thing, and you pay for it, and that's why it would be $300 or $400 or $500, per call. And the call could be, I've heard this, I forget the, I think we talked about it on a previous episode. Like, there's some veterinarian, like, doggy hotline that one of my clients in Brooklyn called. And it was like, I think it was something insane, like $500. And it was like a 15-minute phone call.
Yeah. I think it was Cody. I'm looking through my old thing. I think it was Cody on LinkedIn who asked about membership models. Yeah, Cody Thompson asked about like subscription services, membership models, how to bring that into patient care, who's doing it well. You look at something like this, and while the individual consumer might not be the ideal client to pay the membership, they might pay the one-time, fee for it. What about the athletic director? What about the sports team? What about the person in charge?
B2B.
Yeah. So when we were looking for my kids' elementary school, we were looking for one of the local hospital systems to donate an athletic trainer for some of the games. We were negotiating, okay, we're going to give you a mention, a shout out. We're going to mention the name. We're going to mention these things. And then I do think it came down to they were so short staffed. We had to put some money in for each game in order for them to then send us the athletic trainer. But it wasn't the individual parent of a kid who might get hurt who is paying. It was the school who is paying to have the availability of the athletic trainer, whether they were used or not. And that's where something like this would come into play. I agree with you 1,000%. That's why that video is from like 2-3 years ago. Oh. People don't realize I have content, I have videos, I have stuff in perpetuity
that the world has never seen.
I know that there's going to be an opportunity where somewhere, someday, this is going to be used. So I was data mining and I was like, oh, I found this video. I totally forgot about it. I had no intent to talk about it. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to bring this out and I'm going to share it on LinkedIn and talk to Dave about it. Dana said 100% for triage, if nothing else, because physicians are triaging these patients anyway. We should be available wherever physicians are creating access and we're able. There was an old, I'm going to say article. I don't want to call it a study. I think it was published in the Physical Therapy Journal or one of those journals. And basically what it looked at putting a physical therapist in an orthopedic office to triage where the referrals would go. Is it appropriate for a PT referral? If it is, where should they go? And what they found was there were benefits on all sides. It saved money. It improved the patient care experience. It did all of these things because generally we know it's either the surgeon saying, go wherever, or go to the hospital because I'm being forced to tell you to go to the hospital. It's, somebody in the office who manages referrals. There's a list of opportunities or clinics locally. There's no good referral mechanism in most cases here locally. I think it's public knowledge, but like NovaCare is literally in the office of an orthopedic group and routing all of their referrals. Well, guess what? Where do you think those referrals are going? So my thing with this is we step into the conversation sooner. We're more involved with helping those patients get what they need. And at the end of the day, it's obviously a better business opportunity, but a better patient care experience because we understand, even to the point of, okay, this is more of a sports medicine based. This person wants more of a manual, touch. This person wants more workers' comp. We know better where those people should be going.
Yeah. I like the idea of trying to share it with your community and getting it in front of more folks so that you even have awareness from it. Another option, as I mentioned, like I hypothetically pulled out numbers. I said, $500 for a call or $100 a month. And if you're calling, you're like, well, I'm not going to probably need it next month, but you're just thinking about right now. $100 sounds a lot better. You get someone into some continuity thing, but then again, they're probably not going to need it in month 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? So another option would be that patient who happened to be your family member. If they didn't know you, they call Ohio Painful Hotline, whatever we're going to term it, and the cost is $500, or it's depending on the emergency situation. But like in physical therapy, this is what I'm starting to do now by saying, hey, it's this amount here, and I'm price anchoring it. It's more expensive, or it's a lower dollar amount if we get a Google review, a Yelp review, and a video review after after you experience the service or whatever, like something that like we can save you some money. It's going to be cheaper, but we need something in an exchange. And then, or you could have it for this type of service, which is something that I think would have low awareness in a community. The discounted, like you pay $500 up front. You have to have that patient, that family member post on their Facebook about the service. And then they get like a $250 rebate, and then you get like half of it refunded. What do you think about that?
I love it. I think it's a little too businessy for the healthcare community. Real quick, Scott said, use the trainer that already has a relationship with the parents, athletes, the school administrators to sell the service, the membership. Yep. Dana said, go and be where the patients are already accessing care. This is where I would bring in kind of the concept I've talked about before, piggyback SEO. I would say, let's look at what's already established, what's already been done. I don't know if you remember, there used to be Ask Jeeves. That was a website. There's other like Ask an Expert websites. Now, these are, covering all sorts of topics, not healthcare, but these are established models that have been proven successful already. The guy I follow on social media, Jared the plumber, he has a $47 a month membership for his plumbing customers. Now, we don't need plumbing services every single day, but what he says is for the $47 a month, it gives you fast access, you get priority scheduling, you get discounts on services that you would need anyway. I was listening to a show where somebody was talking about dental hygienist and dental cleaning. They said their wife, I think it was a My First Million podcast, the wife wanted to go to get dental cleanings more frequently. They compared it to the Dry Bar, which is a place that it's like a hair salon. They don't do cuts. They don't do anything. All they do is they do a wash and they do a blowout. So if you're going out for a beautiful night on the town, you go to the Dry Bar, you get your hair done. The theory is then you go to the dental hygienist and get a fresh cleaning just for the night, and so these are membership services. Of course, we know Massage Envy and other companies like that. There's 1,000 ways to do a membership offer for continuity. And I think truly people want to feel like they belong to a community. You know, I still go back to being a student in a physical therapy clinic, hearing the physical therapist say to the patient on discharge, I hope we never see you again. I would slap the heck out of that person today and shake them and be like, what are you thinking? Are you crazy? Do you think this person's never going to need therapy services again? But you know, that's the mindset. That's the culture. That is the tribe that we belong to is, hey, I'm going to get you better. I'm going to get you better, quicker and cheaper. And you're never going to get hurt again. Talking about Piggyback SEO real quick. Let me share this part of a clip from Peter Attia. I used to follow him way back before he had any kind of following, but listen to these stats.
Smoking is 50% increase. Being weak relative to being strong is about 250%.
He's talking about morbidity, mortality, all this kind of stuff with aging.
Having a very low VO2 max in the bottom 25% of the population versus being in the top 2.5% of the population is about 400%.
All right. That video clip has 1.4 million views, which, I mean, we know he's got a huge audience, but still, it's disproportionate compared to the other shorts from that episode that he recently posted. And so if I was in that world of like performance and health, but even for my community of, you know, look, let's avoid disability into age. We don't have to age and be disabled. I would take that clip. I would do a green screen. I would do other things with it. And I would leverage that message out to my community because he's already got a proven audience. And we see from the stats that message resonates with people. So how can we double down on that and talk? You, I think, are a great example of somebody who's working with individuals, probably high net worth, but even if they're not, they're passionate about maintaining and protecting independence into the remainder of their life, the next 10, 20 years of their life. I think we can all benefit from refining the messaging to that community.
Do you think that short blew up so much because of like the actual numbers, like just the stats itself, or the large number of the stats, like the big numbers? Is it because there's numbers only versus just the spoken word? Or is it because of the actual stats or the actual, you know, topic and folks that care about mortality and health? Like, obviously that was a shareable, like if it got that many views, that means people like shared it with family members or friends or whatever, most likely, compared to another random clip where it's just, you know, talking about some other topic where there's no numbers. What do you think?
So if we look at his channel right now, this is current. You go across that top line of the newest shorts, just talking numbers for a second, and then I'll answer your question. 50K, 190K, 1.6 million. This morning it was 1.4, 260K, 106K. So like that is a disproportionate, that's an outlier showing there's something in there that resonates. I was genuinely shocked hearing smoking, type 2 diabetes. They're not even close to something that is more easily controlled, i.e. strength and VO2 max. You know, like that was astounding to me. I think that's shocking to other people. And I think that's something that is clearly resonating with those people. Just like when I share a video and somebody points to like pes anserine bursa, they're not saying that word, but they're like, right here, this part of my knee hurts so bad. When they say the surgeon x-rayed it and the knee is perfect, but it still hurts. Those are messages that resonate with that community powerfully, and it drives, you know, views and engagement and posts. And yeah, there's something in there. It doesn't matter what it is. It's proven that it's resonating. Let's jump on that right now. Let's start creating our own content around those messages and how we can deliver increased strength, increased VO2 max, how we can help that community who doesn't, you know, I love sharing the picture of Archie Bunker sitting in the chair as a geriatric because none of us want to be that person, but too few of us are taking action to avoid being that person.
I think I would love for your feedback. I know you don't want to, analyze it or overanalyze it too much, but for that video, I know a lot of people that follow him probably know what VO2 max is, but I would bet that, so now it's at 1.6 million or whatever. I would bet, I don't know, 80% of the people watching that clip don't know what VO2 max is, or if they know what it is, they're sharing it or they're watching it several times or something because they're like, I might know what it is a little bit, but like, how does that affect me, or how do I improve that number or something? I feel like that's something. I feel like that's part of it.
I think a big part of it is, I disagree. Shocker. I do think most of his community knows what VO2 max is. I mean, he's been talking about it for a decade. I think what resonates with the viewer in that clip is they feel smart. They feel like they're doing the right thing because they're already working on strength. They're already working on VO2. That is not the clip that's going to turn my 82-year-old patient into an avid weightlifter and kettlebell user. That's the clip that's going to turn somebody like me, bring confirmation to my bias in saying, I am better than you because I already lift weights and I already work on my VO2 max, and I'm smarter than you because I know what VO2 max is, and I mean, my real experience, he talked about years and years ago, VO2 max and being an indicator for longevity. And I went and looked and I researched, how do I improve VO2 max? How do I measure VO2 max? How do I know if my VO2 max is better than the norm? Like those were the things that I researched back then. Even though I came out of a kinesiology, sports medicine background, I had forgotten a lot of that stuff. I think that's really what makes that clip resonate. It makes the people doing it already feel smarter and better than everybody else.
Going back to the loss leader video earlier, could practices be pitching because now there's more physical therapists doing the VO2 max testing, right? With the PNOE and other devices or whatever. And I think that device, and it's like a face mask. And I don't know if you have, maybe you have patients buy their own mask, or maybe you sterilize them in between patients. I have no idea. That service, like I know certain therapists that are doing that VO2 testing. Usually it's in a brick and mortar clinic and it's on a treadmill, and it's a fairly fit or active patient. Could that be a service? We talked about the loss leader. So you get the low paying in-network insurance contracts as the loss leader, bringing patients in. You got a big, wide funnel. You get them in for 1 or 5 or whatever visits. But at the first visit or the second visit, if they are over, 50 or whatever years old, could you offer this? Could you say, hey, your insurance doesn't cover, but like this, first of all, do you care about living as long as you can because grandchildren, whatever, like you would have already figured that out. Yes, they're very motivated to get down on the floor, play with their grandchildren, whatever it is. If they're an older individual, great grandchildren, whatever. And could you then offer the VO2 max test as the cash pay offering? And then, depending on the person and the service and all that, charge a quote unquote, like higher ticket compared to what they're kind of paying for the in-network PT service.
Yeah. I mean, testing, like objective, measurable, technology-based testing would blow anybody's business out of the water because, it's one of those things where we know that we could assess somebody's functional ability with our eyes and our brains and our ears and our hands. But once you put that little piece of technology to work, so I've been talking to Doug Adams from Run DNA. He's got the Helix 3D gait analysis system. I mean, it's an amazing piece of technology. And you hook up the sensors and like there's an experience involved with the testing. The same holds true. We know chiropractors that I don't even know how they do it, but they put those little things on a spine and they show you the red bar and the blue bar and they show you, well, this is super active and that's not active enough. And I think we know the greatest proof to me that kind of objective, quote, objective testing is effective is MRIs. And why insurance companies are not paying for MRIs for low back pain until the person has done 6 physical therapy visits is because the insurance company knows, man, you want to sell a surgery? Go get an MRI. We will sell more surgeries than we have time on the schedule if we can get more MRIs done across more low backs, regardless of the symptoms, regardless of the condition. So the insurance company is bleeding money. They're like, dude, we got to stop. No MRIs until you do 6 visits or 6 weeks of therapy. That had a major impact on how quickly patients were going to surgery. And guess what? Patients were getting better on their own. Their acute low back pain resolved in 2 to 4 weeks. All they needed to do was stall. Point of that is these kinds of tests are incredibly effective at selling whatever the service is going to be, whether it's a good service, a bad service, snake oil or real, it doesn't matter. Something like that. And that's where you go to the ultrasound, right? The musculoskeletal ultrasound. It could be used for good. It could be used for evil. But the point is, it's an effective tool in getting buy-in, getting commitment, getting the patient to be like, yes. I remember last part of the story. We used to do metabolic testing. We had something called a body gem. It was a little device, indirect calorimetry. You'd sit there in a quiet room. You'd put this in your mouth. It was like a snorkel type of thing. You'd breathe through it. And then it would give you an objective measure of what your basal metabolic rate would be. You talk about, seeing how people react differently. I remember there was a woman, shorter, heavier, all of these things. She comes in, she does the test. We're like, okay, great. Here it is. You're shockingly low metabolism. It's like 652 calories per day, but this is what we can do to increase it and change it. And we'll put on muscle mass. No, I don't want any of that. I just wanted proof that my metabolism was low. And that is why I can't lose weight. Thank you very much. I'll see you later. And so, okay, she got what she came for. That's what she wanted. But yeah, these kinds of objective tests, even though we know we don't need them, they're incredibly effective in improving buy-in and getting the patient on board, getting the patient to do what needs to be done.
So that was an out-of-pocket service at your practice?
Yes, $100, $120 for the testing. Testing took about 10 to 15 minutes. And it was supposed to be lead gen to selling a personal training package. But again, hey, I hate selling. I hate convincing people to buy stuff. If you're not begging me, I don't want you to do it.
That's why you no longer offer it?
It's one of many multi-$1,000 devices that are in my clinic collected
$100 for 15 minutes. I mean, that's a $400 per hour run rate. I mean, I don't understand.
I know it's tough, man. It's the psychology. It's all the baggage in my head from years ago. I don't know.
Speaking about selling, are you going to be raising your rate on the Learn Medicare billing course?
So we can raise prices in a lot of different ways.
It's still $4.99?
It's still $4.99. No, I have no plans to raise that. I think what I did announce, I don't know if you saw it, I'm going to do a live event here in Ohio. It's a beta run. It's my first time ever doing this. I had dreams of doing something like this, like back in the mid 2000s. I bought a piece of real estate. I had everything set up. I was going to do it and I chickened out. Every time I try to do it, I chicken out. Imposter syndrome, all the stuff you hear about, it's real. But now I'm like, all right, forget it. I'm going to do it. It's going to be February. We'll do a beta run, real low key, just see how things go. And then my dream really is to turn my building into a training center so that clinicians like me, small owner operators who are still in the trenches, would come out and kind of learn from proven examples of success. I'm not a proven example of success. I'm not saying that you're going to learn how I grew a clinic to $10 million. You're going to learn what's working now, and we'll talk and communicate and brainstorm on how we can roll these things out into, the current economy.
I didn't know that about.
I know.
Awesome.
I'm announcing it to you for the first time.
Oh, I thought you said you put it on social media.
I did. It's just on my private, like my Facebook. Okay. I haven't really pushed it yet.
Got it.
A couple comments. So Steven said he and Andy, and I watch their videos all the time. They're starting a wellness program with their Pilates equipment, filmed content. Thanks for the nudge. You know, Steven's doing Amazon influencer videos. Steven's doing a ton of stuff. He's got, I think, two, maybe three boxers, dogs, and they just do a great job.
And he brings them in the clinic, so I'm sure it's a good environment.
Dana, quote, I hope I never see you again. That culture needs to move to Anthony as my physical therapist, not my doctor sent me to physical therapy. I think the challenge. Go ahead.
I would just push back and say, as the practice owner, I've learned a couple of things the hard way. I would love for the patient to say, Total Therapy Solutions is my physical therapist. Concierge Pain Relief is my trusted physical therapist. You should go contact them. And that's why I'm kind of still in the mix with the phone calls and checking in on patients, kind of like that customer satisfaction component, like quality assurance, kind of some of those components. Because then if later or when I hear that some patients got a peak of happiness, I'm like, hey, let's get them writing a Google review. Let's get them posting a Google review. Sometimes my therapists do it on their own. Sometimes they need me to do the nudge. I love that, other than not the therapist, because that therapist, staff physical therapist could leave Tony or I. And now it's like, that patient's going to follow them, right? They're not going to stay because they said, it's the therapist's name. So if Anthony Maritato is the staff physical therapist, that's when you want to kind of have like multiple therapists treating patients, the same patients, so they meet multiple people and they keep affinity to the practice and all the technology that you have at your practice, Anthony, as opposed to starting their own shingle and they take, all their patients with them.
Let's take that into Thursday. Thursday's conversation, because that is what's going on with NIL. That's going on with college sports. These college athletes are leaving programs before they're even getting a chance to develop into, great athletes, because the money is better somewhere else. And when they leave, they take their name, image, and likeness with them. I agree. When I saw that comment from Dana, I was like, ooh, I don't want people looking for me. I don't want to be anyone's physical therapist. And I'll share, like last week, I was in the clinic. I had at least 3 people call to schedule an appointment for the new year. They were like, is Jeremy still around? I want to schedule with Jeremy. Jeremy is my physical therapist assistant. He is phenomenal. That makes me happy. That brings me joy. Now, if Jeremy leaves, do I lose the people that want to see Jeremy? Maybe. It depends on the business you build. It depends on the culture. I'm with you in that, the total therapy experience rather than the Tony Maritato experience. But there are a lot of therapists, that's our perspective as a business owner. If I was a therapist who wanted to treat patients and that was my passion for 40 years and I was still passionate, I would want them coming to see me wherever I am. So Scott said, Dana, 100%. It's all about clinic culture. It takes time to build it. Absolutely worth it. What were you going to say, Dave?
I was going to say I have some immediate responses for Thursday for the NIL and all that. How to keep your star physical therapist so that they don't leave and open up their own shingle. It's a really easy solution, but we'll get to it on Thursday.
Perfect. Steven said 2 Frenchies and a boxer. Okay.
Oh,
got it.
And I had Steven on my show. We talked about, he was looking for like storage units or storage companies down there. I got to catch up with him. I got to see what he's got going on with that whole wellness program and his practice.
Yeah. Well, I think we're done. Let's wrap it early. Parting shots based on all of our conversation today. What are you thinking?
I'm still not stuck. I'm still interested in the family video that you shared where you get on the phone. It's, later at night. You recorded it a couple years ago. I do think there's something there. I do like the component of what Dana Strauss said of like, go where, physicians are, but like you could maybe like, instead of me thinking like, hey, we need to promote this and we need to, tell the community about it, but they don't know about it. That family member only knew to contact you because they're like, oh, the shoulder AC, whatever situation, dislocated, what's going on. Let's call our resident family physical therapist, Tony. Let's get him on the horn. But if you don't have that, then it's like people think of urgent care or whatever. So like maybe physical therapists need to have some, you call into an urgent care after hours and it's like, okay, all these options, like we're closed now, call back on Monday morning at 8 a.m. or Sunday morning or whatever. And then it's like, if this is an emergency, hang up and call 911. And then it's like, if it's this, call, press 2. If this, press 3. And then it's like, if you are looking to speak with a doctor of physical therapy for the Ohio pain hotline, whatever, press 4. And maybe you get routed that way. And then you charge them. And then, of course, that urgent care, that company, you could have some legal revenue share or split there where like they're basically feeding you these calls. They're feeding you some of these patients. That might be a better way. So that's from that. I'm just, taking that right from Dana, go where the patients are, go where the physicians are, make the access easier instead of like, because I think that's a valuable service, but it's like, if we just pop that up everywhere, who's going to know about it? You got to spend money and time kind of educating the community. Hey, we now offer this. So that's my parting shot.
Yeah. And that's where SEO comes in. That's where like I had created the Choose PT First directory as a resource where when patients are searching Google, this was before AI really, patients are searching Google for specific conditions, specific situations. They would find articles that were SEO optimized to answer that question. This is where the piggyback SEO idea comes in, where if somebody's saying, who's the best ankle surgeon in Middletown, Ohio, they're not looking for the best physical therapist after I have ankle surgery. They're looking for the best ankle doctor, ankle surgeon. I want to get into that conversation when they're searching that search term. And then they find my article, they find my interview with the ankle orthopedic specialist. That is where I inject myself in. It absolutely can be done. There's platforms to create marketplaces, create directories easier than ever now. And so I can't do it all. That's why we share these ideas. But as these ideas click and resonate with viewers, listeners, this is where you guys say like, hey, I'm going to build this directory website. It's going to be a side hustle. On my first million, this is my parting shot, and then we'll wrap up. On my first million, Sam Parr was looking for an accountant. He could not find a way to search for a good accountant. So he created an accountant search database directory marketplace. He was like, it wasn't really successful. I actually took a clip and I put it on one of my YouTube channels. He's like, it wasn't successful. It made like 99,000 the first year. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, this is where their perception of what success is and our perception of what success is so different. We can't even fathom. It was like, I made like 90,000 the first year. But he did say is like, it's really hard to help accountants because accountants tend to be small mom and pop organizations and they don't have a lot of cash flow and you're constantly trying to collect from them. Same with us. It's hard. I'm sure you know this from back in the day. It's hard to sell services to therapists because therapists don't have a lot of disposable income. Therapists don't have high ticket, high profit things that they're selling. So therapists are barely scraping by. To tell them it's $50 a month, you would think that you told them it was $50,000 a month. Point being, there are opportunities like that everywhere. You build the marketplace, you promote the marketplace, you build engagement, you get a community, you get YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. People will find out about it. All right, guys, we are done. Go check out the Dave Kittle Show. Go to PT Pintcast. Go to Learn Medicare Billing. Subscribe, follow. If you have content ideas, share them. We love to talk about them.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com. Or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.